How's everybody doing tonight? Whoever watches the VOD, hope you're all doing well. I decided to open up ZBrush on my Tomb Maker, just to showcase if you're watching the VOD and you don't know my skill level and you don't know if you want to check out the rest of the stream in the VOD. This is an example, one of the miniatures I printed off. This is one of the Gretch models, the only one I finished thus far. And even then, there's one other variant of the Tomb Maker I'm working on as well. That'll be basically from here up, coming out of the base. So, this is one example of one of the miniatures I've been working on. Hey, Pierce! If it isn't the concept artist himself, how you doing, man? Alright. So, now that I've showcased that, let me open up a new project. I will say this, when it comes to creating new projects and stuff like that within ZBrush, it's not always quite clear what the correct thing, because sometimes there's file, there's brush, and then there's document, and all of those could be like a new project. I think this is a new document. Nope, that was the wrong one. Only reopen ZBrush. It'd be easier to do it that way. What's up? What's up, Tomahawk, Triple X, and Lightning Lunatic? How you guys doing? Let me pull out. We'll open up default project, and there we go. We can get to work. Doing good, apart from family. I'm sorry to hear about the drama, man. I hope that gets resolved and peacefully. From anything, ghoul, a ball. Well, you gotta start off with sculpting. That's how you start off. Basic shapes. Oh, there we go. And real quick, geometry. Do 2 divides. Okay, Zone Industries, how you doing? Being silly again, per usual. Yes, of course. Decided to join you when the notification popped up. Well, I'm glad you decided to join. It's always good to have people hop in. Now, but may I ask what the green yellowish looking pustules are on the Gretch Ghoul in the corner? Yes. You may ask that. But do you really want the answer? I have an answer. I don't know if you want to hear it. It's pretty gruesome. It is pretty gross. Yeah, as you can kind of figure. But just making sure you want to actually know. I think I told Pierce what it is, but correct me if I haven't done that yet, Pierce. Yes, I want the answer. Okay. Alright. Well, alright. Lore-wise, the ghoul... okay. So the easiest explanation I can give without getting too gruesome, the Gretch consume biomass. They also consume iron and other ore and materials, and whenever they consume any molecular material, they break it down to a more primal structure, more of a liquid structure. So that way, when they mush it and morph it together as kind of a raw material of which to build more Gretch, that ooze, for lack of a better term, it's like a building block. But once you construct a new Gretch with that primordial ooze, which again is not made up of just pure biomass, it's made up of plant material, it's made up of wood, it's made up of minerals, it's made up of iron ore, it's made up of alien ores in the lore of the universe that aren't familiar to us in our periodic table. It's made up of many, many different things, of which they mush and contort and, well, sculpt together, fittingly enough. So, when they create a new Gretch, or they create any of variants of their species, so to speak, some of that ooze and biomass is kind of stored, kind of like a battery pack, but it's not like a fuel for them as much as it is... It works simultaneously as a weapon because it's very acidic. It's very it has a corrosive effect, so it's in a way a weapon. But it's also how this is kind of a spoiler-ish, but Gretch create new Gretch, like advanced Gretch. Like for example, this is a ghoul, but there's bigger Gretch, the brute. The Brute is the name of the next class up, if you will. They're like the bulky tanks. They take the most brutal abuse, but they also hit much harder than the standard Gretch. And what that green pustule raw material does is when they to create a brute, 2 to 3 ish Gretch will kind of mush together and burst those sacs, and that kind of adds to the construction material as they mush together and formulate a brute. And that's also why on the brute you won't see as many of those pustules, because it's consumed that biomass in its morphing process. So basically what they're carrying around on them is an acidic material that they use to create more of their own kind, but if they use it against anything else, it corrodes it and erodes it away. Like an acid. Very cartoony level acid, but still. Yeah. So it's it's multiple things, but those are the core things that it's used for. So that is the least gruesome way I know how to describe it, because in my notes I've described the process as sounding horrific as much as it looks horrific. Because it doesn't look like clay. When they mush together, there's agony involved, because they are alive. They do feel pain. So when they're contorting and ripping apart, you see the bone materials that are inside of them snap out, kind of like twigs. Whatever substitutes as blood in their system also starts to coagulate and mush together. You ever seen John Carpenter's 1982 The Thing? Kind of like that. Whenever that creature morphs out of its mimicry state, that's very, as I've said before when it comes to the Gretch, the biggest aesthetical inspiration for them was John Carpenter's 1982 The Thing. And that's also affected their lore a little bit. So, each of the factions is, like I've said before, is in major ways a representation of me in terms of what I like in my entertainment. Like, the Gretch are all the elements of horror and body horror and eldritch mindfuckery horror as well, all put together in one faction. I like Japanese history and culture, and I also like American history and culture, so I put the two of those very much together in a kind of mutated sense for the Terran Republic. I like Nordic Vikings and werewolves, which aren't necessarily together, but I put them together because they're two things I really like, and I think aesthetically they work well. So that's what made the Warborn, so on and so forth. Every faction has things that I love in them for representation, but it also has things that I'm afraid of, right? Things that affect me personally. For example, each faction has those wider aesthetics that I find cool, find fascinating, find engaging, but they also have elements of my fear, my trauma, things that I've experienced in my life that affect their negative side. Because like Warhammer, each faction is evil in their own right. They do things bad. There are factions you could objectively say are better than others, but widely speaking, each faction are their own coat of evil. And the evil elements of each faction are based on, again, my traumas in my life, and also the things that I personally find abhorrent. So that's kind of what's going to be. So as much as they represent the things I like, they also represent the things I hate and the things that I'm afraid of. So there's that good dichotomy with each of them, and I think that helps me write them better. But anyway, that's my little spiel about that. Clearly, yeah, that worked for me pretty well. I find that with that personal element, it makes it easier to formulate everything. Like, it is hard for me. It's not. I should choose my wording here. It's not difficult for me to write things that. I think it's better to phrase it this way. It's easier for me to write things that I'm familiar with, things that I have like a personal attachment to. I am able to add elements and add details that don't personally affect me, but generally speaking, the core of it, the core inspirations, the thing that help you build upon, the foundation, if you will, I find it much easier to construct off of a basis of familiarity. Like, if I know how it works, if I know how I feel about it, I know how it affects me, I think that can generally represent what it might affect in a normal person. At least I hope I have a similar reaction to most people for most of these elements. But I don't know, maybe I'm entirely wrong. We'll find out how just abnormal I am with what horrifies me and what doesn't horrify the average person. When Warglaive officially has its first release. Hey, temporary alien. I said that right. Yeah. How you doing? How you doing, brother? Welcome to the stream. How's things going? Can't wait for that first release already. Putting away cash to buy my first army and the books you're writing whenever the tabletop finally drops. Yep, very happy to hear it. Yeah, still gonna take plenty of time, but I'm gonna right now what I'm doing first and foremost is prioritizing miniatures because they're gonna be like the bulk of the funding money, hopefully. So I'm gonna start utilizing that as an incentive to hopefully get people to check out the Patreon to support the project. That, and if I do put up a Kickstarter, it does help if you have like images of like what stuff is gonna look like for like the final product. So yeah, I'm gonna get miniatures done, get those on the Patreon, start getting open up a My Mini Factory, hopefully offer that, and then if people don't have 3D printers, I'm gonna start manufacturing when I have the budget to afford shipping and everything. But that's, you know, I'm trying to move at a better pace with the miniatures at the very least. That way, when like lore and the archives are ready to go, that'll be further down the line. I was not hoping to do it this way, but unfortunately, I've learned the lesson that the budget is really against me right now. I'm putting in as much overtime at work as I can to help afford everything. But with any luck, Warglaive will be done, at least in the miniature aspect, will be done sooner rather than too much later. I know people say you shouldn't rush, but an aspect of this I unfortunately have to. Hey, 792. Heyo, how you doing? How many models have you constructed thus far? Let's see. We got the Tomb Maker model. That's the only one I would say is 100% finished. In the works, I have this Gretch that I just started today. And I have the basic Helsing model under work. The helmet is almost done for that. Unfortunately, armored units for miniature production are going to take some more time, because to get more of that done, I need a more rigid 3D modeling software other than ZBrush. ZBrush is good for sculpting, it's good for doing biology, it's those elements, but in terms of doing hard surface like pauldrons, greaves, general armor, right? It's not as good as it could be. You can really screw around with the settings and do your absolute best to do that, but the amount of time it takes to create like one rigid surface and make it look right in ZBrush, you could probably do like 18 different hard surface models in the same amount of time on a dedicated software like Maya, Blender, Cinema 4D. Any of those softwares are better for hard surface, whereas ZBrush and even Blender as well, because it has a sculpting tool, are better for the skin. They're better for more biological structures and clothing as well.
More gil for the cause.
Whoa, Captain Caboose with the super chat, brother. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I will be #1 simp in this life for next. Also, hi, how you doing, brother? Oh, by the way, no, I do want to throw this out there. If people can donate through the Streamlabs link, that would be better. I don't get the YouTube, because the thing is, if I can get around $200 soon, I can more quickly get Maya again. Because unfortunately, that costs $250 a month. And it's the 3D animation and modeling software I'm best with for rigid surface. But it, unfortunately, fittingly, right? The software I know best for that stuff is the most expensive. That's $215 a month. No pressure. Don't donate to, like, you feel like you need to meet that goal, right? Like, and you know, and again, like, thank you, Caboose, majorly for the super chat, man. I'm not devaluing that. I'm just, that reminded me though. If you do want to donate at any point for that, it does work better if you donate via that service or directly to the PayPal link on the channel. Those are way better, just so I can get the money quicker and allocate it to things faster. Like getting Maya is my next goal. But again, like, that's not a pressure. That's not a this. It's just a note, right? Just a note, okay? Thank you. I haven't seen those numbers in a long time. Nah, I don't get donated to a lot, so I'm used to that. But Caboose has almost gotten me used to his massive, generous donations. Almost. My heart still stops for like a brief second when I see the red. When I see the red, and then I see the number, and I'm like, you know, I'm just like, that's a shift's worth of money. How you doing, Caboose? Every gamer needs his fuel.
More gil for the cause.
Oh, was there no alert? I gotta fix the alerts. Hey, Horace Brittle. Yeah, you did. I don't know why. Fucking alerts. I'll leave this up so that way I can see next time that happens. Sorry about that. The alerts are directly through Streamlabs too, so you would think that it would catch that better when it's going through its own service. But anyway, I was gonna write something silly, but my mind is blank. Surprising? Nah. That in itself can be witty. And brother as well, hope you're doing well. I am doing very, very well. I'm having a very good day. I wasn't earlier, but you know, I'm doing better today, right now. I always find it therapeutic when I get to model something. You good so far? Yeah, we just started. It's probably, I think I'm always faster with sculpting than I am with modeling, because I think I'm more calculated when I, like, hard surface model. I find that I think about, like the next 40 steps ahead, so because I'm thinking about it, I'm constantly, like, readjusting how I do it. But with sculpting, I just kind of hammer away at it, and as I go, I think, you know? Okay, 90, you don't have to do that, man. Like, I appreciate it greatly if you do, but, you know, don't feel you have to donate. It is greatly appreciated if you do, but it's never a necessity. Never a necessity. Do you enjoy being a YouTuber, and do you recommend it? I'm not really a YouTuber anymore. I was, I guess, but at this point, I kind of stopped now that I got a full-time job again. I would say to count as a YouTuber, you'd have to do it full-time, you know? Like, it has to be, like, your career. That's how I kind of label someone a YouTuber. And it's not even, like, it's not based on subscriber count, it's not based on donation amount, profit. I think what defines it, though, is if you're doing it full-time. Then you're a YouTuber. If you're... And I was a YouTuber, but that's recently had to end because, you know, to afford Warglaive and to try and help fund it in the background, I need a job. So, plus to pay my bills, pay for food, rent, all that costs money. So, but I would not recommend it nowadays. From my time as being one, though, I would definitely not recommend it. It's not a very smart career choice, and the competition is very extreme. Like, the competition for, quote-unquote, being a YouTuber is incredibly extreme. You will have, I would say at this point, everyone who is the top YouTubers will remain the top YouTubers. You do have the occasional exception to the rule, like Dream, for example. He's a Minecraft YouTuber, and, you know, he did speedruns, stuff like that, and I know he's in drama, but I'm not talking about that. But Dream, for example, he's a great example of someone who's a non-representation of the rule, you know? Like, the rule, I would say right now, is that if you are looking to get into YouTube, it is probably one of the worst jobs to get into. It's an oversaturated market, and again, you have those rare exceptions, again, like Dream. But 99% of the people out there who want to attempt it right now don't. Especially if you have no idea about marketing, and if you have no interest in covering politics, drama, or doing reaction content. If you don't have any interest in those three types of content, don't even bother. Especially if you're going at it from like a career standpoint. If you want to do YouTube as a hobby, which I wouldn't call you a YouTuber at that point, I just call you someone who uses YouTube as part of their hobby. It's a bit different, I see it. If you want to do YouTube as a hobby, you want to make videos, just be a dork and kind of upload it, and if people watch it, cool. If not, you don't really care. If that's kind of if that's more your approach, then I think you're in a better mindset if that's how you're approaching it. I think that's far more healthy, and I think that's more realistic. But if you're looking to do YouTube as a career, if you're looking to do YouTube as a source of revenue, a source of money to survive off of, I would not recommend it right now. It is a wickedly oversaturated market. But if you're interested in those types of content, there's plenty of room for you. And people love drama, people love politics as much as they say they hate it. I genuinely do, so I tend to avoid that content. But for most people who say they hate it generally still watch political commentators and stuff online, right? So it's a thing. You have that view because you're a gaming channel? No, I'd say I have that view just as a content creator. I think if you want to fight with me on this horse bros, you'll lose, because trust me, I've studied this stuff. I've paid attention. I don't have that view because I'm a YouTuber. I have that view because I have a brain. Like, generally speaking, that is the case. On YouTube, there is no room for basically any other content. Don't get me wrong, it's not in the sense that you genuinely can't do it. Like, yeah, you can. But if you're looking to get successful, you're looking to make money, you're not going to. Like, I don't make money. I get money on occasion, yeah. But make money in terms of profit, in terms of, like, my editing software to do videos and to make thumbnails and to put together stream dashes and stuff like that, that costs me easily like $80-90 a month. Like, that is entirely an oversaturated market. I was touching my brain just switched topics. That is, like, that's $80-90 I put in a month, right? I get about, on a good month, I get about $100 out of YouTube. Like that's how much I get out of it. That's on a good month. On a bad month, I get nothing out of it. And YouTube doesn't send you money unless you make a bare minimum of 100. And ad revenue right now is terrible. Like, advertisers are paying less and less every year, so that's also a big problem. If you do Streamlabs and you get super chats and you get a lot of donations that way, one $5 donation is probably more money than you'll ever get from that same person watching every single one of your videos and watching the ads all the way through. You'll at most make through that $1. I'm not even joking. One viewer who watches every single video and doesn't skip the ads, you might make $1 off that viewer over the year. YouTube is saturated in the gaming niche, not others. Yes, it is others. It is others. Your ignorance is quite thorough, my friend. I feel bad that you don't know what you're talking about, but that's fine. You know, you're not in the market, I understand. But allow me to illuminate you. Now, if you mean that there are niches that are not covered, you're correct. There is always going to be niche out there that is not heavily covered. But if you mean that, genuinely speaking, that there are no other niches in the sphere that are like, it's just gaming, no other market is oversaturated, you're wrong. You're flat out wrong. If we look at vlog type content, completely oversaturated. Like, we have channels that have subcategories of this. They have subcategories of vlogs. Like, you have family vlog channels. If you ask me, by comparison, gaming isn't even remotely as saturated as vlog content. Because it's not even just on YouTube. You get that on Twitch, you get that on TikTok. Hell, that's TikTok's bread and butter, is people vlogging, people, like, mouthing to music and stuff. That's pure vlogs. So TikTok is a platform for just vlogging. YouTube at least has a variety. But, like, there are not that many, like, platforms that are just gaming. You could argue Twitch is, but even Twitch it's got vlogs, it's got travel streams. Like generally speaking, the only thing that has a completely dedicated platform to just one type of content, pretty much, is vlog content, and that's with TikTok, and that was also with Vine back in the day. And if we also bring up, like, if we go outside vlogs, okay. What about hobby content? Well, the 40K, actually no, I'll go the whole genre. Tabletop wargaming tabletop wargaming content. Tabletop content, actually, in general, if we include D&D, if we include all of these types of, like, tabletop RPGs, whew, that is a saturated market. Like, that is stuffed like a Thanksgiving Day turkey of content right now. And it blew up recently. Now, is it as saturated as vlogs or as gaming? No. It's still niche by comparison. But you gotta understand that in that sphere that I was also in, that market, by comparison, is also, especially considering the hobby itself is niche, there are way too many content creators covering tabletop stuff. And there's not enough views to go around between all of them. Like, you got the even if you specify subcategories like Warhammer 40,000, Warhammer Fantasy, or that World War II tabletop war game, or if we just specify D&D, all of these subcategories, though the hobbies that they are representing are niche, the amount of content creators covering that supposedly niche content is immense by comparison to the viewership that should be available for those hobbies. So that's also oversaturated. So, okay, so we've covered gaming, we've covered tabletop games in general, because again, I think, like, across the board, that is oversaturated. And in each subcategory, we're talking miniature painting, we're talking about lore for certain universes, all of that is way oversaturated. So we get outside of those genres, what else? Sports. There are a shit ton of sport commentators. There are also usually people who do vlogs as well, but there are a ton of sports commentators on YouTube as well. Lots of them, and they are talkative. I've watched quite a few. Hell, as much as I hate his ass, and he deserves to burn in hell in a very, very, very painful spot in the deepest pits, EDP445 was a fucking sports commentator. And he's not alone. There's a shit ton of people who cover sports. Alright, so so there's sports. So we've covered, so far, 4 or 5 really saturated markets of content. What about politics? I'm not even going to get into that one. If you don't know that's oversaturated, I don't know where the fuck you've been, bro. Then there's movie reviewers. Love that you picked that up. Do you know how many movie reviewers there are? There are so many movie reviewers on YouTube. Hell, there's if we go off YouTube, there's movie reviewers on Twitch now. I'm not even kidding you. There are people who watch the movies live without the little reaction view. They just watch them, and then they spend like 3 hours afterwards talking about that. That is becoming more saturated as well. Is it as saturated as the other ones we've mentioned? No, that's a fair point if you want to bring that up. However, there are a ton of movie reviewers online. There are less now, actually, fun fact, than there were, I want to say, about 4 or 5 years ago. Mainly because right now it's not safe. I'd say it's almost safer to be a reactor. Because if you're like, in a weird sense, it's actually safer to like watch something and talk over it than it is to show clips of it uninterrupted. Even in bursts. Even in fair use bursts of 10 seconds. And then talking afterwards. It's harder to get away with that than it is reaction content. Because reaction content, you're speaking while it's going, right? If you can also have the audio distorted, so you can have it so it's not actually coming through the output sensor. And just have it covered by your mic. That's an option. And you also have the footage minimized. It's cropped. And you can also horizontal flip it. You can put a filter over it. There's so many ways you can make the reactions. Even if you react to something completely all the way through. You can get away with that better with the algorithm because there's ways to work around it with a live reaction. Whereas with film content and review content, even if you take out the audio, people have been getting claimed for the footage. Despite all of that I just mentioned, there are so many movie reviewers still trying to go at it. You still got Nostalgia Critic. You got the big leagues. You got Nostalgia Critic. You got Decker Shadow, which I still definitely put him in the big leagues. You got Spoonie quit, so Spoonie's gone. You have Angry Video Game Nerd. He still covers movies on a rare occasion, but he still covers movies. You have actually no, Cinematic Venom left as well, but for entirely he got laughed off the internet because he had some really dumb takes. Lindsay Ellis, I think she quit recently. Again, outside drama. So to be fair, I'm naming off a lot of ones that are gone now. I think that strengthens my point earlier that we had more of them back in the day. It was actually the content to do back during the day. Now, it's the dumbest content to cover. If you're a movie reviewer, don't ever expect to get any revenue out of that shit. Yeah, Suspect, there you go. See, you're even naming them off. There are so many that are still active despite the hazards I just mentioned. There are so many hazards right now if you are covering movie content. And if you're doing it in a review format. It's in a fucked up way. It's safer to do reaction content of movies than it is to fucking review it and do like clip format. And the thing is, as it is, like one of like you also got Voxus Productions. He gets away with it because he doesn't even monetize his stuff on YouTube. He's not even part of the YouTube partnership program. You got Voxus. You also have the Drinker, the Critical Drinker. He covers movies, obviously, and he gets around it because he turns off the audio. But even then, as far as I understand it, he still gets clipped as well for playing scenes from the trailers. And that's the thing. His reviews aren't even showing clips of the film. It's showing like a loop of the trailers. And somehow he still gets claimed, even though he's got the audio taken out. Not always, of course. He gets away with it more than most people do. But that's because, again, he's looping the trailer and talking about the film and not showing more publicly available free footage of the film in question. So he's found a workaround that works, right? But at the end of the day, I would say the reason we're not getting, despite the fact that as with all those hazards I mentioned, we still somehow have as many as we do. It is not a safe content to cover. If you want a copyright strike, by all means, review a film. Good luck. But just know, it is the dumbest content if you are trying to take YouTube seriously and you are trying to make a profit off of this platform. Unless you can convince your audience to go to your Patreon, donate to you, do stuff like that, unless you can do that, don't review movies on YouTube. It's just not a great idea. It's not a great idea. If you're confident you know how to like wave the rafters, you know, if you're confident you know how to work around the bots, and if you're also confident about like fighting against the legal claims, by all means take the risk. But I would not say it's a safe idea. Just react to the shit. It's much safer. As much as people will hate you for reacting to it, because there's a very strong anti-reaction community on YouTube and all platforms for that matter. There's a lot of people who just are vitriolic about the content. I don't really care. Like, I don't know why so many people give a shit about reaction content and like get so butthurt about it. Granted, I did reaction content and I do reaction content on occasion, so maybe I'm biased, but I just don't get like the vitriol. Talk about documentary channels. It depends on what you mean by documentary. If you mean like an official documentary service, like let's say, I don't actually have a good idea. I don't know too many studios that do documentaries. But if you're talking about more of a Hollywood documentary company, right, like a proper production company, they probably paid for the rights to be able to use footage and use background stuff. So they have permission to run that content, right? But if you mean documentary as in a YouTuber documents something, again, if they know how to work around the copyright, if they know how to edit it well, if they know how to work when you do documentary content, you're recovering way more than just like the raw footage of like the raw plot points of the film, right? The reason movie reviews are probably in a worse spot than documentaries is documentaries can also look up the behind the scenes. They can also cut to other clips of the actors. Like, they can cut away from covering the film and covering like the footage. In fact, you could do a documentary over a film or over an event and show hardly any of the footage. And hell, look at Count Dankula, right? Count Dankula in the Absolute Mad Lad series only shows images and the rare clip. Like, he mostly just talks throughout the whole video, right? And I would call him a documentary channel. Like, at the very least, the Absolute Mad Lad series is purely a documentary series with comedy. It's got a comedic link to it, with the occasional like joke he pulls here and there. But generally speaking, that's a great example of a YouTuber doing content, doing documentary content, and he's able to get away with it because he just doesn't show the footage. Like, he doesn't touch those waters. Not, like I said, not ever. Like, sometimes he does share clips, sometimes he does throw in stuff like that, but it's always quick, brief, and minimal. It's not like a minute. It's not even half the time. It's not even 30 seconds. And if he does show a longer clip, I guarantee you, it's never of a movie. It's never of a movie. If you show clips of an event, usually those are fair use entirely. Like, no one owns that. But if you show a clip of a movie, that's just, you're asking for trouble. Purely. I don't know why my left eye is really dry all of a sudden. Ugh. I just realized I ranted. I apologize. Jeremy Johns and Chris Stuckman are very smart. Jeremy Johns. I recognize Chris Stuckman, but Jeremy Johns. I don't think if I have heard the name, it's escaping me. But yeah, it's the reason we still have some movie reviewers as it is some of them have learned ways around the very aggressive copyright bots on YouTube, right? Like, some have worked around it. Not many, unfortunately. A lot of most of the old school reviewers that we once had are gone, not because they fucked up, but because most of them, I would say, got involved in drama. Which, again, is another great source of content. Like, if you want to get into drama, tea and drama content does so well on YouTube. Embarrassingly so. I really hope no one who is a fan of will get butthurt. A fan of political / drama content. I really hate that stuff. It's so toxic. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the people who cover it are. Like, there are some commentators of that stuff who aren't really that bad, but and some who just have fun with it, right? Like, there's some people who cover spicier, like real world crap and drama between YouTubers and content creators. They do it well, but I would say it's few and far between. I think generally speaking, covering real world events, like I guess it's kind of the pot calling the kettle black, because me and Ludus cover, we cover drama in like the gaming industry and adjacent industries on GT. But you know, the way I see that is we're not really covering the drama aspect as much as we're just kind of giving our opinions about the situation. We're not like documenting it, and we're also not taking it seriously. I mean, we are a podcast. It's really just opinion based. We're not like reviewing the situation. But that being said, if you see them as equals, I'm not going to debate you on that. But I will say that when it comes to that kind of content, to me it looks way more stress filled than it's really worth getting into. And I find that half the time, like, the content looks so. It's just way more trouble than I think it's worth. But again, that's an outside perspective. I don't really cover that same content, so that's like in my opinion. But I don't know. Rant over. Moving on. Different topic. Part of why I come to that, yeah. I'm glad you enjoy my rants. I try to avoid doing them too often. Just adding a little bit of texture. So winter is almost over, and I can't try to prolong it by stealing what snow you have left. Now, like our snow is kind of going away. We actually had a bit of rain today, which was weird. Like, everyone was expecting it to be ice. Like, we were all, like, the temperature was like 33, 34, like right above freezing, right? So everyone was like, okay, it's still gonna be ice though. Like, it'll melt when it hits the ground, but it's gonna be like it's still gonna be ice. But no, it was rain. It was rain all day. Maybe the temperature did like an upswing last minute, but most of the people in the area were pretty surprised. We were not expecting the weather to be not shit. But then again, we rarely expect the weather to not be shit. Alright, that about does it for universal stuff. Alright. Yeah. So, did all the symmetry-related crap. Now to do the unsymmetry-related stuff. Pustule. You live in Maine, I live in New Hampshire. Ah, you're just south of me. We both know our weather is mostly garbage with bits of really nice. Yes, it is 90% garbage. 90% horridness. But that one little bit of good we get most years. That is what is worth waiting for, so to speak. Alright. I don't know why. I think my sister was watching Naruto. I hear one of the theme songs. Big change. Inspired to put in my own Grimdark. Yeah, feel free. The more the merrier. Just how difficult is this sort of program to grasp? Well, maybe difficult isn't the right word. Just curious because I might like to sculpt the odd character and don't want to risk Hero Forge yoinking it. The word difficult is interesting to work in there. Difficult, not to do too standard of a line, but it is true, and I gotta say it, because it needs to be said. Difficult, it comes down to you, right? Like this, I always hate wording this, because I always feel like I word it wrong. Generally speaking, whenever it comes to learning any new skill, when it comes to learning any new platform, when it comes to learning anything new, it comes down to mainly what are you willing to put in for the time. This kind of stuff, it's all about practice. It's repetition. It's the number of hours you put in to really master what you're doing. like, I didn't learn how to do this day one, right? Like, with the stage I'm at now, with this pace I'm working at, I'm actually working at a pretty fast pace, barring the rant that kind of, took up some time. Barring that rant, like, I'm working at a very quick speed. But when I first started, I barely figured out how to add a subtool, speaking of. Like, there's a lot of aspects about this that, took me a lot of time and practice. And do generally take a lot of people time and practice to get down. This is not easy in the sense of, oh, it's instantly intuitive and you know exactly what to do. But it is easy in the sense of, if you have the knack for it, if you have the willingness to learn, and you don't allow yourself to get too frustrated with it, as long as you keep at it, as long as you keep practicing, as long as you fight through the more frustrating elements, you'll get this down quickly, you'll get it down efficiently, and soon you'll be sculpting your own complex characters with a lot of overarching detail. You'll see a huge improvement, and you'll look back and you'll be like, how did I ever have a problem with what I was doing? You will have that moment. But again, it comes down to, what are you going to put into it? What are you willing to do? How easily are you frustrated? How quickly do you put things down if they don't go your way? If something doesn't work the way you envisioned, are you gonna let that keep you down? Are you gonna let that beat you, or are you going to kick its ass, come back swinging, and not let it defeat you that easily? Again, it all comes down to you. What are you willing to put in? So now that I got that little spiel out of the way, if I had to say, for the average person who has no predisposition to 3D art or 3D design, if you have no background in it, it might take you a year. It might take you a year, if assuming that you're practicing it on like weekends, or when you have the spare hour or two, you look up tutorials. So it depends on how you learn. If you learn well with tutorials, you might get it down way faster, because there's a lot of really detailed tutorials on YouTube that really go over the processes of the software. And that's another thing. It depends on what software you're using. If you're talking about ZBrush is a bitch to learn. ZBrush is a bitch and a half to learn. Mainly because ZBrush doesn't like to work with you. It works how it works, and if you don't like the UI, if you don't like how it functions, and you don't ever get used to it, then it's better to probably go to something like Blender, which has its own, which is by the way, Blender, generally speaking, if you're new to 3D art, if you're new to 3D sculpting, 3D art, 3D design, any of that stuff, and you want to get into that field, get Blender. Like, I hate Blender with a burning I hate Blender. But get Blender. Like Blender is the thing to get. You want to get Blender. It is the best starting software for most amateur new 3D artists. I would say it's also one of the more difficult to learn. So if you get it down, right? If you learn how to use Blender, I would argue you'd probably, well, now I hear it's been optimized. I don't really use it at all, but I hear it's been optimized a lot since I last used it, which was like, I want to say 6 or 7 years ago. So it might be a lot better now, but generally speaking, with the complexity of the UI and the initial barrier to entry with Blender, if you can get over that hurdle, I personally believe you can learn any 3D software. If you can get past that initial annoyance of how the whole thing works, then you're balling. You're kicking ass. You're taking names. You're cruising through. If you struggle with it like most, but you hammer through and you learn it, once you do, again, second verse same as the first, right? So like most any artistic medium then. Yeah, it's like any artistic medium. It's how much time and effort you can and are willing to put in, right? Like, if you give it its due time, you'll get it fast enough. But again, that's why difficult is a hard word to allocate with any artistic venture, right? Like, learning to sketch. Well, for some people, that might be second nature already. Like, maybe in a past life, they were an artist. For others, it's, so wait, I do these brief little scratches to draw the thing, but how does that work? Like little. I know that might not be a great example, but everyone has a different like mental capacity. Sounds like I'm saying it's intelligence. And it has a different inclination with it, right? Like you have your natural. Yeah, you have your natural element of which you kind of set in. So there is a level of predisposition, but I do believe anybody can learn what I've learned and learn what many of other 3D artists have learned. It, again, comes down to what are you willing to put in for time and practice. And also, how well do you learn either practicing, what you have to practice, but do you learn better do you learn better through doing, or do you learn better through, like, instruction? If you learn better through like hands-on instruction, you can go to college for it. You can join courses, vocational courses. I know some of those cover gaming now. Yeah, so I know. Like I said, I'm usually one of the worst people to like talk to about this because I'm not a teacher, right? Like I if anyone ever asked me to teach them how to use 3D software, I would unfortunately have to decline to explain in too much detail because I know me. Like I know this isn't my forte of teaching. The best I can do is explain it as someone who knows how to do it and had a natural inclination for it. Like this is my bag. Like this is something I naturally had an interest in and a dedication towards because I always wanted to be a game designer. I always wanted to make video games. So for me, this came to me like breathing. Well, maybe that's a little too. Maybe I'm making it sound like it was too easy. The patience came to me like breathing because I knew going in this was going to be frustrating. This was going to be like confusing. I knew that there was lots to it that isn't simple. It isn't even straightforward. Oops. Yeah, I knew that kind of going in. Actually, maybe I should leave that pretty bald. Yeah, I'm going to leave the eye bald. That way, like, when people paint it, like, they can go ham with the paint. Yeah. I was about to give it, like, a texture, but now I think about it, like, through the painting process, someone might want to go rogue with it. And if it's, like, physically structured to have a specific look, that might limit their creativity. So to avoid that, I'm just simply not going to add that detail. But I am going to adjust that because it's There we are. Eyeball handled. Alright, simple subdivision there. So I'll leave that bold for anyone who wants to paint it in detail. I like to see and feel how it works firsthand. I've also come to realize the classroom is, well, not my cup of tea. Alright, so if you're more of a hands-on person, you're probably going to have a harder time, to be honest. Mainly because these software are not intuitive. They're not, using ZBrush as an example, right? ZBrush is not a pick it up, know what you're doing kind of thing. Like, ZBrush is a pick it up and beg God to give you some kind of transparency and a dream of how the fuck to get used to it. Because the UI is really weird. Like, I find it easier to use ZBrush with a stylus, and actually a part of me is quite convinced that's how it was designed. I never looked up to see if, like, the creators of ZBrush did, in fact, have, like, someone working with a drawing tablet in mind more so than they did for anything else. I don't know necessarily if that was the case. I do know, or I'm fairly confident that if not, then the end result was definitely, regardless, ended up definitely being far more friendly to people running a drawing tablet, because all you got to do is press Alt to move things around. But to explain it without a stylus, How you move, like, the view frame to move around. You guys have seen me zipping around and doing everything really quickly. That's because, again, I'm using a stylus. This button right here is a substitute for right-click. So if I switch to my mouse, though, I click right-click. It's a little bit more jarring for me, and I also end up always leaving it in weird spots. If I want to move the scene, you have to Alt right-click. And to zoom in, you need to let go of Alt while keeping right-click held down and moving in and out. You can also, I did it earlier, but this is the only way I naturally know how to do it. But I know you can do it another way as well. But it's a weird button combo that, again, okay, yeah, there it is. So if you control right-click as well, that also allows you to zoom in. But generally, everything's done through Alt mostly, and that's how I learned how to move around in it. But yeah, to again move the scene, Alt right-click held together to zoom in and out. You click, you right-click and drag, and if you push up, you go farther away. Push down, you go closer to. To rotate, you just right-click, and that'll rotate the scene around. And if you want to shift to focal points, you right-click and shift. You click shift, right-click, shift, and that'll snap you to specific viewports. Right, like it'll snap you to the axes. To the Y, to the X, to the Z. The Y, to the X, to the Z. It'll snap you to those views. That's how you generally move in the viewport. Now again, I can verbally explain that all I want, but quite frankly, I had that verbally explained to me, and I still ended up being like, what the fuck? Like, actually doing it feels way more awkward, especially, again, if you're not using a stylus. If you're not using a stylus, in my opinion, it feels way weirder to move around. Now, that also, do keep in mind that I'm saying this all from the perspective of somebody who learned a completely different 3D software before ZBrush. I learned how to use Maya and Blender way before I even touched ZBrush. And both of those have I would argue, very different way of moving the viewport. Same principle, it's using the mouse and the keyboard and control schemes like that. But in Maya, for example, if to rotate the scene, you Alt left click and move around. At least that's how it's been a while since I touched Maya, so if any of this is wrong, quite frankly, maybe, but I'm just trying to use it as an example. But in Maya, it's Alt left click to like rotate. You can scroll in and out to zoom if I'm recalling correctly. To snap to axes, and again, like just remembering that scheme is also weird. I also could be thinking of Blender. No, I'm thinking about it. Yeah, but the thing is, all 3D software, for some reason, have a different way of like moving in the scene. I really. I really hate blenders, to be honest. Blenders isn't bad. Like, it's just, for me, Blender has, like, the weirdest one. Which is strange, considering most people think ZBrush is the weirdest, but I would argue it's Blender, but it could be just me in that. And to be fair, again, I know that Blender updated a lot of stuff, so perhaps they fixed what I thought was weird about Blender's movement scheme. What? It's been a while. It's been a hot minute. It's been a very hot minute since I last touched Blender. Just fixing something. Meant for that to be a texture, but it looked a little weird. Anywho, where was Yes. Okay. Sorry, I was correcting some things. Pokes the eye. I want to add. Alright, so I can turn off symmetry again. Gonna add another pustule spot.
I'm gonna add another pustule spot, because that's a normal thing to say. Don't question it, I'm just doing my thing.
I'm a very weird person. I hate to admit it, but it's true. I'm a weird person. I guess I'm more entertaining that way. There we go. One other pustule spot. Just for some level of diversity amongst that. Another one right here. And I'll add one big one on his chin.
Just chinny chin chin.
There we go. Alright, so now we've added some pustule marks. We can then add the actual pus. Or the actual pus ball. Though that might just be a nasty rumor I heard somewhere. Also, I just really want to make them as close to how I imagine them as I can, if not exactly. Well, again, yeah, if you're willing to put in the time and effort, man, yeah, totally. I 100% recommend 100% recommend that you put in the time. Like, it's a great skill to have, especially in the modern day. You know, if the world, not to black pill anybody, but if the world goes to nuclear warfare tomorrow and we all go to World War III, it'll be a very useless skill. But, you know, nuclear Armageddon doesn't exactly have a lot of room for 3D artists. Or maybe it does. Who knows? Maybe, like, you can, with any skill, you can find another use for it. I don't know. I don't know what you would in the post-apocalyptic setting, but assuming the world doesn't go to, you know, go to hell in a handbasket, there's is in the modern first world, you know, in the modern day in the first world of America, Europe, you know, places like that, being a 3D artist is a pretty useful skill. I mean, to kind of illustrate my point, here's a shot of, I think that's, what's the name of that dragon from Game of Thrones? Drogon? Yeah, Drogon. Like, Drogon was made in ZBrush. But if you ever see those images come up, you know, ZBrush has that automatically, like, if you don't do anything for, like, a minute, it starts showing, it's just, I think the reason it does that is it's trying to, like, it's trying to get the creative juices flowing, because sometimes if, you freeze up for a minute, it's because, like, the creative juices seeped out of your mind. I don't know for a fact that's why ZBrush adds that, but it does actually help me on occasion. Like, if those, like, shots of other people's work kind of sip in, it can actually give you ideas for your own. So I find that helpful almost. Another random question. Are all ghouls and other such creatures of the Gretch similarly made? Like, are all Cyclops or have the same kind of limbs, or are they random in their creation? They're not random, but they are very different from one another. Like, they are very different. Ghouls are like your common foot soldier, and they're made with just raw. They're made rapidly. Is kind of the concept. They're made rapidly with raw biomass and minerals and materials kind of mixed into their structure. They're just spat out as fast as possible. They're the worker drone of the Gretch. They're the bumblebee drones, right? Like, they're sent out. The idea is mass numbers, overwhelming. They're also, do all the menial tasks that and I almost said hive. They're not hives, but that the greater organism of the Gretch requires. So, they're not meant to be anything special, but they morph together and mutilate themselves together to create more specialized troops, which in and of themselves are mutated with different aspects of their nature. Like for example, brutes, they're specialized to take a beating more so than a Gretch can. More so than a ghoul can. Ghouls can't take a lot of abuse individually, but if they mutilate together and to create a brute, the idea is that brute will take the brunt of the damage of whatever they're up against, and will shield the lesser or weaker, again, to use the term, drones of the Gretch organism. And however, the brute isn't as open use as the ghouls are. Again, because it costs more biomass. I kind of think of all biomass, minerals, pretty much everything that makes up a planet. It makes up any kind of ecosystem they consume, right? The only thing that the Gretch really don't consume is the core of a planet and the outer crust. Like, they don't consume all the dirt. Pretty much everything else that they can get away with consuming without the planet imploding, they will consume. And they add that to their, structural build of whatever they create. And the idea with the ghouls is that they're kind of like the rapid worker bee. The only time that they morph together to create a brute is when it's necessary. If they're just on an abandoned planet and consuming the biomass and consuming the minerals and consuming the those aspects of the planet, and there's no resistance, there's no need to waste, quote unquote, the resource of the bio. Because think of it like this: one brute can't go to 4 different locations, right? 4 ghouls can go to 4 different locations on a planet and can go to do 4 different things, or start the process of consuming 4 different locations, and they can move around faster. They can also work with tomb makers to start getting the minerals out of, like, deeper under the initial crust, and kind of go into the ground and collect gold or iron or cobalt and stuff like that from underneath the ground, and again, the worker bee. But a brute is just a big lughead. Like, if they need something destroyed, like, that's really hard for them individually to rip apart, then they'll send in the brute, right? Like, they'll morph together and he'll bust up the rock, he'll bust up this hard material. But if he's not needed for that, or holding off others, his biomass is better allocated to the 4 individuals for their, versatility of what they can do. Despite the fact that they're individually weaker, but they can do more because they can spread out. From the looks of the model, one of my Warglaive Gothic armies might have to be the Gretch. Well, I'll be happy for you to collect them. They're a horde army, primarily. You can't... One of my goals is to make all armies have, like, each option. Like, you can run them as elite, and you can also run them as a horde. So, that's my goal with every army, though some armies kind of are still getting shoehorned into more elite. But they can be worked into a horde army. So, still working on it. penises. How do the Gretch harvest molten minerals, if they do so at all? They do consume molten minerals. That's part... There is a variant of the two... This is lore-wise. On the tabletop, I don't know if we're going to be able to work in this variant. It might be one of the sub-factions of the Gretch that you can fit this in. But there is a type of tomb maker that is... Again, the tomb maker being that the large, kind of Tremors-inspired... Tremors slash... I know that there's also like the sandworms in like Dune, right? But that's not one of my inspirations. But that's an example to use. The tomb makers, they're meant to be the subterranean like chomp 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 chomp. Okay, I'm full. Pop up, go back to the organism and deposit what it consumed, and then go back in the ground and continue what it was doing. There is a variant of those that if a planet is very volcanic or is more like a planet hell, kind of like how Earth back when it was first formulating its atmosphere and for like when they were like, this is like common scientific theory is like when the planet after the Big Bang happened and the planet kind of morphed together and Earth came together. It was a part of our history, the planet's history, millions of years ago, where the planet was called Planet Hell, because that's when the planet is just volcanic. Like it looks like the idea is that it would have looked like our idea of hell. Lots of volcanoes, lots of molten lava, very little agriculture or any, if any, very little life altogether, and sort of primordial organisms. So, kind of like that. Let's say the Gretch go to a planet that's in that stage of its formation. They'll still consume that planet. They'll just adapt the organisms it creates to be resistant to the molten heat. Basically, Gretch will come popped out as like with thicker hides. They'll be probably slower moving, but they'll be able to resist being melted in the lava, and they'll be able to morph together into a tomb maker that can successfully consume the molten material and deposit it back into the greater organism of their formation. So basically, they just adapt to what's needed at the time. Is like the short answer. I probably could have just said that, but of course I can't. I over-explain. Alright, anyway. Pustules. And these I think I can pretty much just leave as native spheres. A tabletop, will we see any abilities around the ghouls and other... Greg. Is a ability to come together to form more specialized organisms. And I'm still working out how I'm going to work. I think I'm not going to be able to do that. Because it's going to add an element that's maybe too I think what I'll end up doing is when I start actually releasing, like, alpha versions of the game, of the tabletop game, and I start having, like, friends and family kind of test it out, right? If I'm going to try and add that mutation element on the tabletop for the Gretch, where, you know, if you have the miniatures on standby, right, you can mid-game switch out 3 ghouls for a brute. But the problem with that is game balancing. If I allow that, that means that if someone comes to a tournament with enough minis, right, if they've printed off or bought enough Gretch, the moment they go up against another player, they can literally adapt or switch up their playstyle based on the next player they go up against, even if it's another Gretch. And I think that will be a problem. Like, I feel like that could be so abused to make them the most overpowered faction. In the lore, they are. In the lore, they're definitely the most menacing faction. But I don't think that's going to be very balanced for tabletop play. So I think where I'm at right now is I think I'm going to just keep that on the lore side of things. And in the games have, like, you do need to have a preset list. Then you can't just, like, mutate ones in and out. Like, I just... Unless I can come up with a way to maybe limit that, or maybe have it like a specialty for an HQ unit to allow that once or twice per game. But it's only in those small ways I think I can work it in. But widely speaking, I think it just like using it like using it ham, like to be able to go ham with it. I think that's gonna. I feel like it's gonna be too hard on the players playing other factions to try and work with, because that means the Gretch player can adapt to them at the drop of a hat. But they can't rebuild their army on the fly, right? Like it wouldn't be fair that way, and it shouldn't be fair the other way. So. Gretch is not Greg. Okay, you. They could actually consume, and if it could consume the molten rock, magma beneath the crust. They do try and consume it. Again, the Gretch generally leave the planet core and the necessary elements to hold up the planet. Basically, they leave it just on the brink of imploding, and then they bail. Or they do another thing, but that's a big thing in the lore I don't want to reveal quite yet. They do another thing, though, to planets, and it's another reason they leave it relatively intact. To the point where you can, still use it. But generally speaking, it's not just life forms that the Gretch consume. It's everything. Like metals, minerals, rock, molten materials, which is, just high-heated versions of all those things. They also eat biomass. Greatly speaking, that is another big component to building their structures and building their units. But generally, there is nothing the Gretch cannot consume, or if they can't initially, they cannot adapt to consume. Actually, kind of in my head canon a little bit. I gotta admit this again. Wearing my inspirations on my shoulder, I kind of picture The Thing from John Carpenter's 1982, The Thing, to be like a little chunk of biomass that was given a consciousness by a larger Gretch organism and somehow got captured by something else, and then, I don't know, through time travel ended up back in the past on Earth, and that's how that whole thing played out. Like, part of me is like that, but another part of me is like, I can't, if I say that out loud and the wrong company hears that, they're gonna be like, he's claiming to have our copyright, sue! Like, no, I'm not, I'm just saying, like, it's a fun little headcanon. Like, that's kind of like a fun, that's kind of like a fun thing right there. Have a very well balanced diet. Yes, the Gretch have a very well balanced diet. Anywho, ranting aside. There we are. There's the Gretch head with... Oh, I'm missing one pustule. There we are. Fingers crossed you forget about it tomorrow. Alright, so I think I can combine those. I guess I gotta hold the mushrooms. Yeah, I could put one more in the back. That kind of bald spot right there, that could work. Screwed. Put one more. Yep. To be fair, I expect the exact same treatment of the faction I'm leaning. Like, treatment in which regard? What's your main treatment of the Hellsings? Lean towards the Rathan and Terran Republic most, but my third pick is a hard decision between Gretch and Vogue. Good, good. I'm trying to make them all a hard decision. My goal is being accomplished. I'm accomplishing something. How brilliant! I'm just checking something. Let me stretch real quick. I should probably save before. That's definitely one of my things I gotta work on is regularly saving. Got to remember to save my progress, because 3D softwares are notorious for breaking down and being bastards. Knock on wood. Don't fuck me up. It would be nice not to be fucked up. Excuse me. Yeah. Stretch as Miss Steamer, yes. Actually, it just occurred to me, I probably was a little douchey earlier to Horace Brittle. I gotta next time I see him in the chat, I gotta apologize. Nice. I think my irritation snapped on too much. I definitely gotta get more sleep, because I got too irritated all of a sudden. Like, that was way too quick. Normally I brush stuff off that's, like, really small, but for some reason, like, I don't know why his statement earlier annoyed me more than it should have. I definitely got to get more sleep, because that doesn't usually happen. Yeah, next time I see him in the chat, I'll definitely apologize for that. Of course, that just occurred to me that it might have been a bit. I might have been a bit more standoffish than was rational or necessary. Alright, so. There's something else I wanted to do. Yes, okay. Move tool. Okay, I didn't have symmetry. There we go. Very boxy head, but that's kind of the idea. Pull a Pokemon and collect them all. Hey, I'm not gonna complain if you want to collect them all. I'm all for that, baby. Yeah. Definitely early on, it's definitely gonna be selling STLs, people with 3D printers. But as soon as I have the money for all the shipping, hopefully, that all the shipping demand and also all the supplies to ship, you know, boxes, addresses, stationery. Now, if this becomes a full-time thing, that would be a dream, not gonna lie. Definitely a dream. It's a bit of a pipe dream at the moment, obviously, but if I could make Warglaive and develop Warglaive full-time, oh, that would be a dream come true. But, you know, I tried to do YouTube full-time and that didn't work out, so maybe I shouldn't be in a rush to try and make another thing full-time. Everything's got its place after all. Alright, so I think that's the most amount of detail I can do on the head that'll actually show up on a given miniature. So, yep, we will now move on to the teeth. Before I do, I want to... There we go. Yeah, now that's all one geometry. Well, it's not all one mesh, but it's one geometry. Difference there being is, technically speaking, hold on, let me give you an example. It's not working, but basically these, though they move together because they are considering themselves one geometry, these little pustules are still a sphere inside the head. So it's not one mesh. Ah, crap, I forgot to do that. Maybe I can get away with this. Turn off symmetry. No, I don't think that's gonna work. What are you doing? There we go. Now do it again. Shit. Yeah, just trying to... That will work. There we go. I'm glad to hear you got a job, man, but don't feel you need to spend the money on me and on Warglaive. Money is important to make sure you got plenty of in your own bank account, so make sure to be... I know, I'm lecturing, but I do want to make sure everyone rationally keeping, because the thing is, if there had never been a track record of people donating beyond their means, I wouldn't even be like, hey, be careful. But I have seen that happen. I have seen people go overboard with like donations and stuff like that. Not to me. Well, no, actually, yeah, to me. Because Caboose has donated a lot all at once, and so has Balls, was Tang over on the Discord. So they've given a lot. So they're not the best example to use right now, but they okay, so I guess that has happened to me. Well, point is, people definitely donate a lot all at once and do so. They didn't do so beyond their means, so I think that's fine. But some people do keep donating and sometimes go a little bit over their budget that they should, and it is, I think, a fair act on a behalf as like a streamer or something to occasionally remind your audience, hey, be careful. Yes, it's great to get donated to. It's great to get money, especially in this case where I'm trying to fund a project. But at the same time, I want, especially with gas price. If you're in America right now, gas prices are actually, I think, everywhere that did dealings with Russia, and also even just within their own countries. Gas prices are kind of skyrocketing right now. So, the cost of living is subtly about to really jump up. Like hell, my car is really fuel efficient, and it cost me almost $60 to fill up today. Traditionally, it only cost me 40, a little less than 40 to fill up. Now it's over $55. So at $4.29 a gallon where I'm at, and I don't even want to know what gas prices are in California. This is single hobby, but I have given up on 40k, so I shall return to rent status. Alrighty. Again, how's you gauging yourself? Anywho, now to the... What the? I'm missing a... What? I'm missing... The hell? Did I delete it? Did I delete it? Oh, thank God it's just a sphere. I have no idea why that disappeared. Okay. It was a sphere now, but it has disappeared. It went on vacation. Oh well. So now let me save again. Okay, no, okay, the background music is playing. Okay, good. I was wondering, because I saw the bars stop moving on the background music, so I was worried it went silent there for a minute. They're the garbage before the animals come in. It's like, the little cat bops it explodes, and the cat turns into nothing but bones. What are above the brutes of the Gretch, and if they also can, like, advance? I can give you guys a full list of, like, their units that are planning to be at the tabletop but are also in the lore. Let me pull up my notes real quick. My jungle of notes. Alright, so this is what the Gretch have for, like, their units. So, I don't have them listed in terms of, like, power. I have them listed in terms of role. So, we have the Warglaive's version of HQ units are heroes. They have hero units. They're the HQs. They're, like, the leaders. Troops, infantry, you know, like, they're your standard pick for, like, your main military force. Speed attack, those are fast-moving, quick, generally glass cannon units. You have elites, and heavies, and then support. Like, those are, like, how the game's units are categorized. Now, I will list them by power level, so to speak, but just know that this isn't in order by category. I'm about to list off their order list their order by where they are in terms of, like, the lore of where they are in the pecking order. So you have ghouls at the bottom of the totem pole. Right above ghouls is brutes, and kind of adjacent to brutes in terms of, like, equal power level but completely different use is ghasts. The difference there being brutes are slow, heavy-hitting tanks, whereas ghasts are fast, rapid-moving, but they die really easily. The idea is that they're either a hit-and-run unit, where you cross your fingers and hope that they don't get hit by anything, but if they get in melee range, they're going to be brutal. So that's ghasts. Above both ghasts and elites and power level, we have we have Whalers, which Whalers are an interesting unit. They're a powerful debuff unit. They're going to be a very useful unit on the tabletop. I'm hoping they'll be very utility. They do cause damage, they do buff allies, but the idea is that they're going to cost a lot of points, so you're not going to field a ton of them. But Whalers, that's amongst the elite category. And Harrows. Harrows are another elite unit, and they're ones I think are going to probably get put in the game more often. I don't know if I want to describe them in too much detail yet, but Harrows are an interesting elite unit as well. They're less utility than Whalers. They're more used for straight up attack. They're not glass cannons like Ghasts, but they're not tanks like Brutes. But the idea is that they do more damage than both. But they cost a lot, and they're really strong. But you don't really want, you don't want to go overboard. So that's Harrows. Then for above Whalers and Harrows, because they're kind of on the same tier together. One's more utility though, and the other's more straight attack advantage. Then with heavies, we move to... Actually, in terms of power level, there is one unit I almost completely forgot to mention. And because this one's hard for me to place as well. But there is a support unit, because the support category are non-combatants in the game. Like, they're a whole category I'm experimenting with, and I'm curious how they're actually going to be used on the tabletop. They're pure utility units, and every faction has support units. But in the Gretch faction, they have something called the Abscess, or the Abscesses, for plural. Whaler, no, not whale like wailing, but whalers as in like a whale to cry, kind of like a banshee. Whaler. Then you have, for support, you have Abscesses. Abscesses are powerful support units. The idea with an Abscess is they are basically this large kind of, bio egg looking thing. They're not very mobile, but the idea on the tabletop is that if a Gretch ghoul or a set of ghouls die within a certain inch distance away from it, that Abscess can bring them back to life. Okay, basically the idea is the lore explanation, and this is what they do in the lore, is Abscesses absorb the biomass and absorb the mineral mass of the of that particular Gretch unit and spit out basically it repaired. The idea on the tabletop I'm going to have is that on like a 5, like on 5s, like on a 5-up roll, with ghouls, you can get a ghoul back, at least one ghoul back on the tabletop. You can roll a die for each one that died within a certain vicinity of the Abscess, but it's not again, the hope is that it's not going to be too abusable. And I'm also thinking of limiting how many it can bring back. I definitely want to make it harder depending on the unit. Like, for troop choices, the idea is it's going to be a 5-up. And for anything, like for elites, for example, because the thing is, Abscesses can only revive elites and troops. It can't revive heavies, and it can't revive speed attack, and it can't revive heroes. It can only revive your basic troop choice and elites. And even then, I'm thinking about switching that to just the troop choices and just speed attack. And maybe let elites not get rezzed. But as it stands right now, going with the idea that the Abscess will revive elites and troops. And the idea is that with elites, it's a 6. You got to roll a 6 to revive an elite. So you basically got to get a perfect roll. And even then, I'm going to limit to like 1 elite, probably throughout the whole game, because if someone's really fucking lucky, that's going to be so abused, or has loaded dice. Much more limited. Yeah, it's a much more limited version of that. Yeah, the Abscess is a unit that is not very mobile. It does have movement, but the idea is it's a very slow chugging unit. And again, all support units are kind of that same idea of bringing stuff back or keeping things in the fight. The only units in the game that can do true reses, like this unit has died, but you can bring it back, is the Abscess for the Gretch, and there is a unit amongst the Rathan that also has the ability to res dead units. And that one's better than the Abscess, but solely because of movement. Because it's more mobile of a res unit amongst the supports. But it's also it's worse in the sense that to revive anything in the Rathan army, you can only res troops amongst Rathan, for one. And for two, you have to roll 5s. So like with troop choice here with the Gretch. But the only advantage with one over the other is, I will say, the Rathan support unit that can res units, it has more movement, so it's more mobile. But it can only revive troops. It can't revive elites, it can't revive speed attack, it can't revive heavies, it can't revive heroes. It can only revive troops for the Rathan army. So that's like that gap. Whew. Yeah, distracting me. Yeah, you're professionals at distracting me. But yeah, that's oh yeah, I was still going. Sorry, so we covered yeah, so I don't know where Abscesses would be considered on the power scale. They have like no combat ability. I say like, they have no combat ability, but they're very useful utility. So that's up to you where they would be. They're kind of like the wild card in terms of power. But okay, so above them, so above the above all that I mentioned so far, you got the heavies, you got the Tomb Makers, which again you guys have already seen. It's the tremor looking things. They're really tough bastards. There's another heavy unit I'm conceptualizing, but it's not quite done. So I'm not going to mention it yet, as it's still in the in the lore. I already have it set, but in the tabletop, I'm really not sure how well it's going to do. It might be too abused. I might really need to nerf it from the lore. Well, there's another heavy unit I'm going to hold off on. So, okay. So now that we've covered troops, speed attack, elites, heavies, and support, the HQ units of the Gretch are the heroes are the Sinister and the Melancholy. Those are the two hero choices you have for the Gretch in first edition. And I'm not going to add any more. We're just having those two for the whole faction. There's still stuff I'm adding in every other category. Well, except for troops. Troops are all set for Gretch as well, so that's ghouls and broods. But pretty much every other category I'm still working on. But I've listed off all the definitive ones. 792. All right, have a good one, 792. Thank you for joining while you could, man. Have a great night. Sleep well. Favorite painting? I'm glad to hear it. Glad you enjoy it. I'm glad you used it for painting fodder. Yeah. But the HQ units are, again, the Sinister and the Melancholy. And they are far more powerful. Both are terrifying in the lore. Like, the idea in the lore is if you see these on the field of battle, you might want to turn tail and run. Because your odds of killing it and beating it are low. Extremely low. I won't give you guys too much detail about them, because when I would do full reveal about the Sinister and Melancholy, I want that to be in concept art from Pyrrhus, so I'm not gonna like just throw it out there. So I'm gonna give that time. I really want to present them with a visual aid, like, because that one I'm definitely gonna. There's only so much I can do to verbally describe the Sinister and the Melancholy without that visual aid to really showcase what the fuck you're looking at on the field of battle that would make you go, no, I'm good. I'm good. Have fun. Please look forward to it. Yes. Please look forward to it. Indeedy. Yeah, where were they? Ah, yes, teeth. That's what I want to work on next.
Why is symmetry not activating?
Uh-oh. Okay, well, symmetry doesn't want to activate, so that's not good. What are you, Scooby-Doo now? What the? Oh no, it it did the thing I fucking hate. And I never know how to fix off the top of my head. Yeah, there's two versions of symmetry in like ZBrush, and to activate them, I never remember what activates one over the other. But there is a distinct bullshit degree, as I like to call it. With one of the forms of the symmetry isn't like on the object symmetry, it's like global symmetry. And boy, is it fucky. I'm trying to figure out a good. Yeah, see, like it's doing that global symmetry crap, which is annoying. I don't know why it does that. I really don't know why it does that. I'm sure it's a very simple thing and I'm just not thinking of it, but it's really fucking annoying when it happens. Rah, rah, Rasputin, lover of the sovereign queen. Mm. Good song.
Good song.
Boney M did that song, I think, right? Yeah, Boney M. Okay. That was ABBA? Yeah, I'm not sure why you would think that. Crap, I know that was... Oh, alright. I always forget this multiple subdivision thing. More cross. Yeah, how old are you? As I get older, things are getting a little more confusing for me. Mm-hmm. Oh, Ancient One. 37? Okay, you have a little bit more leeway than I do to say that, but still, come on. Ain't that old. I mean, 37 is middle-aged. Yeah, you got plenty of time on this earth. Let me tell you, my friend. You got time. You're good. Shush. Never. I will speak my mind if I so see it be. Oh, my back. Ah, crap, it's already 10 o'clock. Why do the hours just swing by? Alright, I'm gonna see if I can get the head more or less completely done, and then probably gonna have to call it because it's getting late. And I do want to get up at a decent hour tomorrow. Oh man, 98? That's quite the age to live to. Man, must have lived a very full life. I think 98. It's not that I think that. I think that's common. I think most people would consider 98 fairly well aged. And 107 is not only 9 years older than that, so it's not that much more impressive. Don't get me wrong, making it over the 3 digits is impressive, but when you're 98, that's like you're right there at the finish line. Like, it's a slight gap. Oh, more typical. Oh, that's why. Interesting factotum. The reason I'm not adding more and more teeth, like in the reference photo up there in the corner, is because I'm keep in mind this is the miniature sculpt, so it's gonna be the ghouls are gonna fit on a 25 mil base is the idea, so they're like your rank and file. So there's only so much detail as it is. I don't know how the rest of this is gonna print off, but there's only so much detail you can get on it. Resin printing, thankfully, has a lot of detail it can accomplish, but there is a degree that you got to be prepared might not print very well, and the teeth are definitely going to be questionable. So I'm trying to make thicker, bigger, exaggerated teeth to help fit. But yeah, I think we're going to call it at the head, because I think that's a fair spot to call it. Get some sleep, gonna rest, gonna work on this some more tomorrow, gonna get more of the body start to be built. I gotta obviously do multiple variants of ghouls, different heads I gotta make, which thankfully this one only took 2 hours 40 minutes, so I'm looking to have at least 5 to 6 variants on the ghoul builds, so we'll see how long it takes me to make the different heads and different stuff. Yeah, it's gauging how much detail you really want. I got to add the tongue as well. I just realized I forgot to add the tongue, so I will add the tongue, the 2 sprung tongues later. That is technically part of the head, so that is one part I missed, but I'll get to that soon. Yeah, I'm gonna head to bed. Excuse me. But it's good I got started on the ghoul. And I can also continue to work on the Helsing models as well once I get Maya back, which I'll probably have to wait till my next paycheck. So I can have the because again it's $200 a month to pay for Maya, and I'm just relearning Blender is gonna be a bitch. So I'd rather just save out the money and chill out for using Maya, which I do instinctually know how to use. Yep. Other than that, have a great night, everybody. I might stream tomorrow, might not. I don't know what my plan is. It's been a long week. I kind of want to rest, but at the same time, I don't find it stressful or anything to stream or do anything like that. So who knows? I'm gonna play it by ear. I'll see how I feel in the morning. But yeah, if I don't see you guys tomorrow, I'll catch you guys another time. And thank you so much for being an amazing audience. Thank you for the generosity from Captain Caboose for the $100. That was immense. And yeah, have a good night, guys. Bye-bye.